Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 12 Gauge Podcast. It's been a little bit of time. Lots happened. I'm here with Officer Dalton Gibbs, or some of you may know him as Lucky Dallas. So, what's up, my man?
How's it going, Rock?
Good, good.
It's been a long time coming. A lot of these people don't understand the history we have or some of the stories we could tell.
No, not at all, not at all. Let's kick off and say, man, it's been a crazy year, to say the least. Well, it's been the last couple of years have been crazy.
Yeah, we've been on quite a roller coaster.
So, for those of you who don't know, so Dalton is intertwined here with the history of the 12 gauge and the whole creation. He saw the whole thing, from the very beginning to the process that we're in now with 12 gauge pro wrestling being born.
Yeah. So when I met you, that was still at the alpha male Rocky Shaw stage, pretty much. You came in, and that was when we were in the warehouse training under Bobby Moore.
Yep.
And some people coming through now, they don't even know what I'm talking about when I say the warehouse out there on Shorter Avenue.
No, it was cold.
Yeah. But we trained there for a little bit. I'd already been training for a couple months, and you came in. I thought, who's this guy with a big ego coming in thinking he's going to get started? Couldn't even do a bump right. Because you were sort of doing the backyard thing before that.
Yeah.
And then, like you do, you came in, you blew the door off the hinges. You got into a couple main events, made things happen. And from there, you made my first opportunity happen, Superstars with Sean.
Yeah, Superstars.
We got into the Battle Royale, and that was my first official debut match. And then you were in the main event there that made headlines.
Yeah.
And then we got our first singles match in Subligna.
Yep, correct.
That was my first singles match.
Yes.
And it was not a 5-star classic, let's say the least.
It was not a 5-star classic, but it was fun.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. We did what we set out to do.
Yeah.
And I know that match means a lot to both of us just for the point in time. And that was before we figured out the depth of your health issues. And it just seemed like a lot of things came together just right to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about it, it's crazy. We talk about the time frame, and overall time frames in wrestling, it's weird because obviously those who know you watch the 12 Gauge Podcast, Dalton knows more than anybody else. No matter what I do, I'm going to get heat and criticism for whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then there's the fan love that comes along with that as well. And peace, I love you guys very much. But wrestling is the only place that if you start a race and you finish before the next guy, they'll criticize you for it.
Yeah.
Because first place, so they want to hear you, the guy that's took 30 years and hasn't achieved what you have in 3 years, is going to complain that you haven't spent the amount of time in the business that he has. So, obviously, I'm a disruptor of the way things happen. I'd come in and was blessed to actually achieve a lot in a short amount of time. And I'm not done yet. We still got a lot to go. We still got a lot more to do. As far as my in-ring career, yeah, that's probably capped out right now. But now, as far as 12 gauge pro wrestling and me making stars out of each and every one of the guys that we bring in the door, including this guy here, Dalton, that's the next plan. Just because my days in the ring are over doesn't mean that I can't use everything that I learned and the things that I'm innovating, right now to actually start giving the guys, the new blood, an opportunity to shine. Yeah. And that's where you come in. That's where Corey James comes in. That's where
Ryan Marks,
Zach Riley. Then those are the young blood that's got to come up. They've got to have ring time. The problem with this is you guys have been in the ring, but you haven't been in with the ring with the people that can make you sharper.
Right.
And that's what we're going to have an opportunity. No more days of the guys that don't have the experience still wrestling guys that don't have the experience to learn from each other. We're going to put you in with teriyaki.
Yeah.
You know,
And you've been announcing over the last couple of days the amount, not just like, oh, one or two guys. You've been announcing pretty consistently over the last couple of days these people reaching out and getting added to the roster that are legit talent that haven't just been around forever on the same scene. They travel, they go to different shows, and you know, then going back, there are certain people that get their feelings hurt, but the network that we're part of and that we're trying to build on is the network of people that build each other up and work together. You know, at the end of the day, the goal is to better the business.
yes, that's the goal, is to make everybody better. We've got to get out. Pro wrestling has to get out of the carny mindset of just how do we make a dollar to survive.
Right.
We want to learn how to bring the fans in and make it an investment. We want them to be invested in you. We want them to be invested in having fun.
Fun.
I mean,
Wrestling should be fun.
Wrestling should be fun. And we've all went through that section where wrestling wasn't fun.
Right.
Wrestling was too much drama, and wrestling was a headache. And here lately, the elephant in the room is there's been a lot of bad publicity in this area in particular
Yeah.
of wrestlers doing things they should not have done or been involved in. Now, again, I've said many times I won't be a part of any public witch burnings, and we won't mention any names here.
No.
But we as wrestlers should not put ourselves, first of all, in the situations. And I think many of them are learning that lesson the hard way for these accusations to come out. So in a public, in spotlights, you know, it's in law enforcement,
Yeah.
it's going to happen regardless.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. Me personally, you know, I became a wrestler, and when I started, I wanted to keep wrestling in my personal life very separate. You know, but now things and being public record and just being out in the public so much, being a public figure, you know, like you said, there are some people that do things they shouldn't, and there are some people that just put themselves in what we talk about the court of public perception. You know, unfortunately, you just can't even allow the perception to be there, you know, to a degree. And like you say, there are some people that are out there on a witch hunt. They'll look at every little thing. And generally, there's a reaction to it initially. And then facts from there come out. And sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. But the best thing that you can do is protect yourself and just not allow that perception to be there. Because once the public perception gets out there, that's hard to reel back in.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. I mean, public perception. We've talked about, and just going back to the past. You had your Salem witch hunts.
Yeah.
We're all a little bit smarter now than we days. How many people got burned that weren't witches?
Yeah.
I mean,
Just because of the misconception.
Correct. So I encourage all of you, be smarter. Don't believe everything you see on the internet. You know, and allow guys like this that are in law enforcement to do their jobs. When things like this happen, there's a process. There's a process there for a reason. And we're going to get more into that process and talking about a little bit, and then we're going to bounce back into wrestling too. So, but the words Lucky Dallas,
Yeah.
they have come to mean even more to this guy and those of us that have, guys, this guy is like a brother to me, family. So what he says affected me and my family just as much as it did his family. You know, because this is scary. You know, I usually talk to this guy all the time. And, you know, I always say, you know, be safe out there when we hang up. Because, you know, I'm genuinely concerned. You know, I know what is out there at 46 years old, or almost in April, I'll be 46. There's not a lot that I haven't saw. And, you know, his job over the last several years, you know, a lot of people have painted out the police officer to be the bad guy.
Right.
And I'm not going to take any, there are bad cops. there are great cops that actually protect us. So unfortunately, you always have a mix of both. Same thing with wrestlers. You could go one side of town, there's bad wrestling. One side of town, there's great wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, so um, you look at it how you will. So, but so I have actually before this podcast. So I have actually looked over the official documentation of the subject that we're going to speak about. So I know for a fact everything that we're talking about is exactly recorded and fact. So I don't know if I may have to edit this out. So I looked over the documentation by Lee Patterson, and as I said, I can verify that everything that we're going to speak about is factual. It has cleared the GBI, internal affairs.
It's all closed. It was
Yeah.
ruled justified, and now it's public record. So,
Yes.
I mean, they could file an open records request to look at it. But the issue, like we talked about, going back to misconception, there's now that it's public record and it's in that court of public perception, and I chalk it up to people either being misinformed or not caring to inform themselves. Unfortunately, there's conception negativity coming from it. So instead of addressing that directly and going back and forth on Facebook comments or anything else, you were kind enough to allow me this platform. We could put the fact out there and put everything to rest.
Yeah. And so that's what we're going to do. As I said, I looked over the documentation. The fact that this guy was able to not only survive the situation because, and we make no lie, we know that everybody was affected on both sides. I mean, having even be forced in a situation in self defense to take someone's life is hard.
Yeah.
And I know he struggled with this ever since the day that it happened. So it's not this isn't an easy subject, and this is going to be one that if you're not really ready for the emotion or the climb that we're about to go on, this might be the time you want to clip off and skip over to the next section.
Yeah.
But on this day, so Dalton, I'm gonna let you relive it in your own words. Kind of how things went down. Let's start off with that morning. Carry me through. Let's go back as far as leaving the house that morning, if you can remember that far. In there,
I don't think I had my coffee yet. But yeah, I get where you're going at, and I'll sort of guide you through some things. But first off, I do want to express my sympathies to the family involved and everyone that was there that day. I can't imagine how they're processing it. Like you said, it's been a struggle for me. And here we are on Sunday, will be the 1 year anniversary of this incident. And I'll never get closure on it. I'll be all right once I get through this. I started therapy back in October. My therapist thought this was a good idea as well. But I'll never get complete closure on it. But like we said, this is my way of getting out there, telling my story of it. But not a day has gone by. Or not an hour has gone by that I haven't thought about this. I don't know why he chose what he did do that day. And that's something I'll have to live with forever, but I can't imagine how his family or the people there that day are processing it. So that morning, I went to work. We hate to say the word routine, but business as usual, you get in your routine. Like I said, now, I go to work, get my morning coffee, and I was at one call about some crazy lady throwing rocks at cars, and they didn't want to do anything, didn't want her going to jail for damaged property or anything like that. They just wanted us to check on her, see if she needed help, see if she wanted to go to the hospital. And unfortunately, we deal with that a lot, mental health. And did you see LA Knight's promo recently with Drew McIntyre?
I have not saw that one.
Yeah, so he did a great thing. He came out, he sort of interrupted and talked directly to the camera saying, well, first I want to use my platform, to say if something hits you in the field just right, especially as a man, cry about it. That doesn't make you less of a man. Um, and there are great mental health resources, especially here in Rome. Uh, I want to say a couple years ago now, they started a 988 number instead of 911 for, you know, legal emergencies. You call 918 during a mental health emergency and get directed to resources. Um, and then he went on to call Drew McIntyre a crybaby, is how he transitioned that. Um, but the first part of that, where he talks about using his platform for positivity, um, was just great for someone like that to put that out there. So we deal with that a lot, and of course, there's the comments about police dealing with mental health and misconception there. But if we could direct to the correct resources and again turn all that into a positive, and that's also why I'm telling this story here, so we could tell it, maybe someone looking into police and can look at it and say, oh, someone who's actually lived through something, or take that into consideration. And now I'm using it for training. If you want to be part of this job, you have to know what to do, right? So I dealt with that, and then I was driving around South Rome when this call came out, and I was right around the corner just by happenstance. And the call comes out, armed robbery at this store, and we get calls like that all the time. Most of the time, it's someone just hitting the panic button or something on accident. But I even remember thinking, this is a little weird the way it's coming in. So this lady had called 911. Apparently, she was in the store, and then there was the clerk, and this man came in with a gun, trying to get money from the clerk, cussing at the clerk, threatening him with the gun, this, that, and the other. And the lady had hid behind a cooler, I believe. Or she hid in the store. She was so scared. Mm-hmm. So then the man takes the clerk back to what we call the ding-ding machines, and tries to get the money out of those. Meanwhile, he also has a bag of duct tape he's getting the clerk to tie himself up with. At that point, another man comes in the store, and the lady takes that as her opportunity to run out. But that second man that came in the store, and I know he's struggling with it to this day, but he grabbed whatever he was buying that day, went to the back, saw what was happening, but it did not register to him somehow. And even in the note, Lee said, incredibly, he didn't realize it, right? Which I don't know if he's going to listen to this or not, but I don't fault him for that. And, there are a lot of what ifs in this scenario, but I don't believe he was trained, like we are to recognize situations or maybe the severity of what was happening. So he went to the back and was just like, hey man, I'm ready to check out whenever, and went back up at the counter. So I pull in, and the lady that called that had ran out the store was saying, he's in the store, he's in the store. And, and then walks Brandon Pledger. How's it going?
I thought y'all were recording.
We
I
are.
mean, we are, but you're good. Do you want to do a 30-second alibi promo?
I'm just gonna tell you to get fucked, but I didn't come back.
It's all right.
He's off camera, but that is Brandon Pledger, ladies and gentlemen.
He's the owner of the Alibi, which is where we're at recording right now. He's gracious enough to give us this space. But anyways, going back. So, she's saying, he's in the store, he's in the store. Again, that's a little different than, sometimes we pull up the store and it's like, this is business as usual. It's a little weird. And then there was a truck that had pulled in, and they were all getting ready to go in the store, but they see me. I have my gun out. That's how I'm trained. We're about to go through, clear this building. There's some type of active threat in the building, possibly victims or whatever. So I'm telling them, hang on, y'all aren't in trouble. Y'all just stay in the truck for a minute while I figure out what's going on. And I'm walking alongside the building. One door's locked. And I'm walking around, and there's a glare on the windows. So I'm trying to keep my space and trying to look into the store, see what's going on. And there's that guy standing there, at the counter ready to check out. And so I see him, and I'm pretty sure, I turned my head and raised my eyebrow a little bit, this is weird. So I give him a thumbs up. That's the universal, is everything good? And he returned it. So he sees me, walks out to me. He's like, yeah, I think they're in the back working on the machines or something like that. Okay. So again, building clearing is a fundamental tactic of law enforcement. You learn in the academy, but you don't really learn how to do it or apply it until you've done it a couple times on the job. But with him saying they're in the back, my mind's on, oh, I'm going to the back. That's where he's saying people are. Without going into too much detail, I zig, the armed robber zags. Okay, he hits the door. Door chime goes off, so I turn around. He's running. So right then, I have a decision to make, and there's not a right or wrong decision. I could have checked on the clerk, made sure there wasn't another victim or anybody else in the store. But here's a masked man running. He just committed armed robbery. To my knowledge, I get called there for an armed robbery. Masked man running out the store. And at the end of the day, my job is to arrest him, or at least detain him until we figure out what's going on. So, like I said, I hear the door, and I'm breaking this down. Like I said, I've had a year to process it, and look back at the details, and review the video myself. But going through and explaining, whereas in real time, all this was less than 3 minutes. So all these decisions are going through my head. What do I do while I'm doing it? Door chime hits, he runs out the door. I immediately start chasing after him, telling him, please stop. At the same time, I'm getting on my radio, giving out a description, telling him, hey, this is where we're at, this is where we're going. And at that point, I'm chasing after him. So I even put my gun back so that I can run, do everything I need to do. And he goes up McGee Street, which is an incline. And it's not a long distance to sprint, but it's not a short distance either, especially on an incline. I even have people, tell me like, damn, you ran that far and you're still able to, conduct yourself.
The adrenaline flowing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So he trips and rolls over and faces me. And I remember while we're running, I'm seeing money flowing out of his pockets. And it's a funny thing that your brain processes, because I remember being like, oh, I don't remember a playground being right there. And I'm also thinking, we're on this hill that goes down the other side, that if a car comes up the other way, we're going to get creamed. And so I even moved to the sidewalk while all this is going on. But he turns and faces me and says something to the effect of, I'm not going back to jail, bitch. And it's my job, like I said, put him in handcuffs, take him to jail. And I see the barrel of the gun. And my first reaction was disbelief. Like, that's not really what I'm seeing, is it? And I think that's just human nature. And I know he's messing with the gun. I get offline. Now, at that time, my partner is pulling up. And so it takes his attention away towards my partner. He stands up and is walking back. And I heard the gun click. Apparently what had happened was while he was messing with the gun, which was a revolver, he hit the cylinder release and all his rounds dropped out. And this whole time I'm giving him orders, stop, turn around, put your hands behind your back. He's not listening. I'm going back to jail, bitch. So he's not going to cooperate with us. At this point, I think my exact words to the GBI agent that interviewed me afterwards was, there was no doubt in my mind that he wasn't just evading us. He wasn't just running to get away from jail. He was intending either seriously bodily harm or death upon us. And, I hate when people say I didn't have a decision to make, because it takes away my agency in it. I think it was best said that my training took over. But I remember it was almost like a checkbox. Like, okay, you're justified. You're doing the right thing. And so I stopped the threat. And I ended up shooting 3 times. The first time apparently hit his shoulder. The second time, to this day, nobody knows where it went. And third time, hit his central nervous system, and I saw his body go limp. And my partner's getting out the car. He's telling me, you're good, you're good. And we run up, we go to handcuff him. And I reach for my handcuffs, and I don't have any in my pouch because the day before I had worked court, and we were transporting. Someone else transported for me. I never got my cuffs back. Um, I had a spare set in my cargo pocket, but my partner just handed me his. And then with the adrenaline and everything else going on, I could see it on my camera, which I didn't realize at the time. I was shaking so bad, I couldn't get the cuffs on him. So my partner came up and handcuffed him. And then I sort of walked away, and that started my process. And time from there was so distorted, and it took a while to realize everything that happened after the fact from there. And we go through a process, and that's the first time in 20 years someone specifically here had been involved in something like that. And so nobody knows what to do. And I'm sitting there like, I'm good, what's the next step? Like, I understand what's going on. What's the next step? And they're like, we don't really know. Here's what we're doing right now. We'll keep you updated. We did great communication. But I remember after everything, someone else was driving me home. And I was just like, we go out, we deal with things, and then we go back to work and go deal with the next thing. I remember driving home and just being like, this feels wrong. Like, I want to go back to work. Which I was on admin pay, pending investigation, just due to the nature of it. And I was out of work for 2 weeks, and then I went back to work on admin duty. Generally, it was the same thing as light duty, which is what people do when they get injured, but I wasn't injured. So again, it was like, we don't really know what to do with you. And I was able to get great experience on that side of things. And then I was able to go back to work after that once the DA's office verbally cleared me and said, they don't expect any issues. There's still some due diligence to do on their part, but, it's justified, it's cleared. And so that's one of the misconceptions I keep seeing is, why did it take so long for them to clear him? They must be, covering something up, or there's some conspiracy theory. But Lee Patterson called me, and then I missed her call, and then my boss called me and was like, hey, the DA needs to see you, who pretty much is the power of the land around here, right? Mm-hmm. So that's like, okay. But again, a year later, it wasn't hey, it's about that, right? I remember going to her office, and she told me what it was about. And she sat down and had a whole conversation with me about why it took so long, everything that was involved. Because it's not just us or the DA's office. Like you said, the GBI, and there's so many hands and networks in it to make sure everything's done correctly and documented correctly in it, and you have to go back and look at the legal aspect of it and everything. So yeah, now here we are, almost a year later. I say finally, but at the same time, I'm worried about it being public record and being out in the open. But she made sure I understood that was just part of it. And I am okay with it. But like I said, now here we are, and people are recognizing me like, hey, didn't I see you in the newspaper the other day? Like, yeah, like which way? What do you think about it? Do you know what you're talking about? Or like, do I need to worry about you, or are you just saying congratulations, or what? So, an incident happens one day, and it's gonna, there's good and bad with it, like anything else, but it's gonna follow me the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But that's what happened.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about this before, even in the beginning, is public perception. It's amazing how many people will read the headline, make their judgment on what happened right there. They're not going to read the rest of the article.
Exactly.
So that's why he chose to go, come forward. You're hearing his story. Obviously, we could tell It's a very emotional story, and in moments, life changed forever, and based on a decision that he had to make. In all of us, I've never been in that level but I've talked to other vets and police officers, and when you're in a high stress adrenaline situation, moments matter,
Yeah.
and whether whatever happened, what happens at the end of those decisions, the ones you made sure you came home to your family.
Exactly.
And so those are important. You can't look back, and nobody can judge and say, well, you should have done this or you should have done that. When you're in a high stress situation, you make the best decision that you can possibly make with the information, the training, and all those things that you have available to you. And by the end of the day, everybody is self-preservation.
That's it.
That's what we're all meant to do, is preserve ourselves for our family. So, you know, and I'm glad you made it through it. I'm glad the decisions you made were the ones you made.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because one wrong decision there, this story could have been completely different.
Yep. And I mean, we'll get into it later, but so many things happened. Like I said, any of it could have gone any other way. And I don't necessarily play the what if game in terms of second guessing or, reprocessing, but just realizing the sheer amount of any little thing could have totally changed the outcome of just not necessarily maybe what happened, but how it could have happened.
Yes.
And, processing that and dealing with it, that there's no, I have no doubt in my mind that there was some level of divine intervention. But it was also just luck.
Yeah. And it's so strange to follow the patterns that developed from going from A to B through me into the story with you, because Lee Patterson, I don't know if I'd ever told you this, but Lee, when she was, I don't think she was a DA at this point. Back when I first was working, I worked at Office Depot, and I was the copy and print center manager.
Yeah.
She came in to order her first set of business cards that she had ever ordered. I think she was still a lawyer. She was doing legal at that point in time. So I helped Lee get her first order of business cards taken care of. And so that's how I met her.
Right.
And then to watch her go on to become DA. And during that time, my wife, Tania, she became involved with the sexual assault center. Mm-hmm. So I became, I know Lee, Sammy, so many people downtown that
all the powers be.
Yeah, all the powers to be. Dave Robertson, what's up, Sheriff? And so all those things linked together to get us to where we are. So when I met you and everything, it was, it was just one of those continuation of the process.
Yeah.
And
it's funny how life works like that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, man, I just hearing the story, and then for those of you I don't know, this is the first time I've heard the story from him as well. He's been, I don't even know how he's kept it in, other than, I'm sure his, did you say counselor? How would you refer to that?
I have a therapist.
Therapist. So other than his therapist, probably the only person that's heard this story completely through. So you guys are hearing it at the same time. You got to see me hear the story for the first time as well. And I can only imagine how y'all process. I'm kind of speechless and trying to figure out how to move forward in this conversation with him, because, I mean, damn. I mean, that's really.
Yeah, what do you say?
What do you say?
I remember seeing a video, and people just aren't going to get this unless they live through it. Totally different situation, but a guy killed someone for raping his sister. And someone asked him, he was like, how's it feel to kill someone? And he said it was awkward. that's the worst thing you can do to someone, right? You're raised with that belief. But and people got so upset, like, oh, it's so much more serious than that. How are you gonna just describe it as awkward? Like, yes, there's more depth to it, but then you tell a story about it. Like you said, what do you say to it? And and there is that awkward space. And for 2 weeks at home, I didn't know what to do. I asked. We have a psychologist that's on a reserve. I was like, what do I do? Just go home, stare at my wall, and process it, or what? And I remember that night, my whole family, got together, and I just stayed up playing video games with my brother. That's what we did growing up. It took my mind off things, this, that, and the other. But now on this side of things, I'm turning things into positive, and it wasn't just that incident last year. That's the most tragic, life-altering one. But you and I were almost competing last year on who had the worst luck, right?
Right. Yeah. And it goes back when you're saying, and again, your situation was so much different than mine, but I was always taught, because I grew up rough, because I was a fighter and got suspended in school. But one of my things that I was taught in kickboxing and everything else, and we saw so many people quit, is everybody's Billy Badass until they get hit in the face.
Yeah.
And then then suddenly things change.
Yep.
And so, I used to have, when we did kickboxing, my attendance would be, during the first year when all the people would come in, there'd be a 20 or 30 person class.
Right.
You'd have the first sparring competition. You'd have a 6-person class.
Yeah. It's almost like the gym after New Year's.
Yes, yeah. Once those people actually got hit in the face, they decided this wasn't fun anymore. They didn't want to do it.
Yep.
So life is hard, and training to where you're an officer. Wrestling we say should be fun, and that is the outlet that we chose. But I will tell you too, people, those that are listening, and some of you that have started training, wrestling is hard.
Mm-hmm. Well, wrestling applies to a lot. So, and we'll get back into that. So with policing, we get trained. You go through academy, you go through all this, and then you get out on the road and you go to your first real call where something serious happened, or you have to process your first traumatic call or something, and you have your wake up moment. And then going to wrestling, first day training, you take that first bump, you realize, oh, this ain't just a trampoline. And you and I have seen plenty of people come through on day one, and we never see them again.
No. Yeah. Most people, that first bump is a reminder that it isn't a trampoline.
Yeah.
And so, Pledger over here, he recently took some bumps on the ground. And so, how was taking your first bumps, Pledger?
Fun.
He's lying.
I like Chronicles.
I know. If you ever hear the term crazy SOBs, that's Pledger.
That's Pledger. So
Crazy SOB.
yeah. So he's been called worse. But But yeah, you take your first bumps, and then you learn to do things that was unnatural. We talked about when I first started. The bumps we got now, and he can tell you this was a challenge from a front flip bump.
Yep. Coming out of the corner.
Yeah, I did not want to go on my head and flip forward. My body did not like that idea whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so that was my first big struggle in wrestling is, I was talented enough to hit, I could hit any kick that I wanted to on this dude and make it look good like I killed him, but, never actually hurt him. But now when it comes to...
I was one of the first victims of the 12-gauge super kick.
Yeah. And I had so many more kicks that you guys have never even got to see that he took. So, but yeah, it's crazy because we go through that process. We've learned how hard this business is. And for you, it's a whole different, like, for especially police officers. And I saw this with Marks and some of the other guys. The transition has to be a little bit hard because you're kind of you're trained to be a stoic person
Right.
at work, but now you got to crack out this personality in wrestling.
Mm-hmm. And
'Cause-
get it to level, 11.
Yes,
Um,
because nobody wants to see your police personality.
right.
I mean, let's be honest, yeah, you guys aren't that fun when it's off. When I'm rolling up and I see you and not on duty, if it's a
Yeah.
police officer other than you, I'm not enthusiastic about seeing that person that day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's going back, I try to keep personalities separate, but here we are. And, well, just with what you do, and you don't have a day job right now necessarily, but you wear so many hats, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it's just, you go to work, you do what you do at work. You go home, you're a family man. Then you go to wrestling, and, if you just wrestle, that's great. You're a wrestler. But a lot of wrestlers are also involved in either production or, talent meetings, promotion. And so you just have to act in your role at that time, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And, Ryan Mark specifically, I know him by 3 different names, whereas most people know him by 1.
yes,
Him
right?
and I are real close.
Yeah.
And so in wrestling, sometimes you really have to fine tune and be like, oh, you can take aspects from your life and, like I said, dial it up, but you have to figure out how to fine tune that and get yourself over.
Yeah.
And that's the art of it.
Yeah. Ray Traylor or the Big Boss Man.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, actually a Cobb County police officer and incorporated that into his personality. And again, a legend.
Oh, yeah.
So it's wild. We're speaking of and he says, speaking of many hats. So, wow. So starting 12 gauge pro wrestling,
Yep.
now taking on all of right now I pretty much wearing all the hats for the promotion.
Right.
So promoting, booking, finding sponsors, the artwork. I'm handling all the artwork on my own right now. And so it's crazy. I'm trying to figure out, and my phone rings continuously. If it's not someone looking for a booking for wrestling, they want to tell me a new idea, tell me how to promote.
I don't think I've been with you at any point in time longer than 30 minutes without your phone ringing.
Yeah. And, or, just telling me they want me to go to hell and burn. I mean,
Yeah.
there's the gambit that it runs right now when you're doing something. And to be honest, I love the death threats and and all the hate, because that means that I'm doing something right.
It means you're living rent free in someone's mind.
Yeah, I'm rent free in a lot of minds right now, and I'm okay with that. And, me and you had a conversation not too long ago, and I said we talked about a gentleman that I had a conversation with, and I was like, I don't sugarcoat things. I was like, if you want something sweet, have a donut, but I'm not that donut.
I would like to insert here. You and I haven't always been completely buddy 100% of the time.
No,
We've been at odds and ends ourselves.
Yeah.
But I've also seen other people completely burn the bridge with you. And then some come back on the string that's left, and it's for the benefit. But you don't take any of that personal. And that's a thing I feel like a lot of people, especially around here, can't do. They get their feelings hurt, and that's it. Whereas you or I get our feelings hurt, we sort of dissect it, and we're like, okay, what can we do with it?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's going to be the overarching theme of this podcast is, things happen, take it, move forward.
Yeah.
And here we are rebuilding. We're looking to make bigger and better.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's business. I mean, we can be friends. I'd love to be friends with people, but
Can't be friends with everybody.
can't be friends with
Can't
everybody.
make everybody happy.
Can't make everybody happy. That's 100% true. 1,000,000% true. but you can take things and look at them from because, I mean, again, there's personalities aren't always they're gonna collide at times. I don't know a good wrestler. I don't know a good, successful person that can be in this business. You're alpha males if you're in this business. You're going to have egos.
Yeah.
If you don't have an ego, you're in the wrong business completely. Because you've got to now controlling your ego is different. Now I would say you do have to have an ego, but learning where to draw the line, that's a whole different category too.
You definitely have to be able to stand up for yourself and know which toes you can step on, because you're going to step on some toes, but you don't, going back, you don't want to burn the wrong bridges either, or ruin opportunities for yourself that may be good down the line.
Yeah.
You sort of have to keep yourself in check and pick your battles.
You do have to pick your battles, but then you have to realize when I said a disruptor of business,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things in this business that you're told you can't do, you shouldn't do, and we've always done it this way.
Oh, we're exposing the business.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to any of those theories. There is respect, but this ain't 1950. Things are different in this business, and we don't look at everything because wrestling was invented and run by Carney. It was a carnival show. We're now athletes and we're entertainers.
Oh, yeah.
The business has to move on to be ran exactly like that at this point in time. We got to learn how to make our new stars, build our new stars, and promoters need to be offering what we need to be offering, and what I'm offering with 12 Gauge Promotions is promoting them.
Oh, yeah.
How do you get spotted by WWE when you're not running your promos, you're not on the internet? The worst thing I can get is this. I'm gonna step on some toes right now. Is for you to hit me up online and say, "I'm this great star. I want $100 to book," and I look at your social media profile and you have 300 followers. You know,
Yeah.
that might sting, but are you promoting yourself?
Well, I feel like a lot of people say, "Oh, it's going back to the ego thing. I'll let my work for themselves," and they go out there and they may work fine, but it's like you say, the crowd might not really be into it, or you go on their social media and they're not doing anything for themselves. Whereas this is a business, you have to invest in yourself, whether it's gear, good promo pictures, doing promos, and at the very least, just sharing whatever promotion you're working for. It baffles me on people can't even do that when it takes no time, no skill, but you have to have some sort of presence.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if I'm the promoter and our booker, and I look on a page and you say, "Oh, I want $100 for this night," and you don't even share your event that you're working for me, it ain't gonna happen again.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, because there's a lot of talent out there that I can give that money to that's gonna work harder for it.
You got to back it up, and at the end of the day, it's business. You got to be able to sell tickets.
Yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, it's asses and seats. So,
That's it.
I mean, again, that's just such a huge thing because we've got so much great talent in Georgia. I mean,
Oh yeah,
we're displaying that
and we're
on our
bringing in
roster
people
now.
from other states.
Yes, and other states as well. And great businesses that are looking to, that we always got great sponsors. We're waiting on the alibi to return, and so we've got. Let's see. I'm just kind of thinking. We've got the Rome City Creamery that's right across here from us. It's been a great supporter. Bratcher Law Firm, and so Taylor Realty. Artistic Edge. So we got a lot of really cool support. And
all local.
Yeah, and I've got a meeting actually, our lunch meeting tomorrow with Atlanta Rick. So So those of you that might have been at at the fairgrounds show, but would probably got to see Atlanta Rick come out and do the experience.
Now remind everyone, when is that show? Where's it at?
We are
What we
having
doing
that
bigger and better?
show. So the very first debuting show of 12 Gauge Pro Wrestling happens right here in Rome, Georgia, on April 19th, 2025.
At the fairgrounds.
At the fairgrounds, the Coosa Valley Fairgrounds.
Yep.
And we are coming full circle of where I started and, of here in Rome, Georgia. And we, and this is, I'm going to give credit, being the promoter is great, but sometimes someone throws a golden nugget to you. Mm-hmm. And so we are going to call that show. You know what we're going to call that show?
What are we calling that show, right?
We're going to call that show Welcome to Our House. And this was actually Dalton's suggestion in one of our chat when he said it, and it was golden because all of those we can, going back to the Superstars main event, this guy along with several other guys flanked to my left and right as we entered the ring, and some people thought they were my security. If you go back and watch the thing, it looked like a Goldberg scene. But you could hear the crowd. At that point in time, my entrance was so over that "Welcome to My House" was a song that they would sing.
Oh yeah.
And so it's really a full circle moment. So from everybody used to say "Welcome to my house," it's going to be our house now.
Yep.
We've learned everything not everything we can learn, but everything we could learn to get started to make this show successful. We're implementing, and we're going to learn.
Fans.
So, and listen to the fans. I mean, guys, if nothing else, we listen to you guys. You have watched the roster reveal, and without a shadow of a doubt, I heard you say, Rome wants women's wrestling. Well, by God, we had women's wrestling, and we've got more women's wrestling to come. Jazzy Yang, Nikki Heat, Cassandra Golden. We are bringing women's wrestling. My goal, and this is up to you guys, you got to support it. You got to show up. You got to buy those tickets so that I can continue to do it. We are going to be one of the first companies in Georgia to have a women's division and a title for the women's.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So that's definitely in my plans. It's been long overlooked. That they need their spot just like we do. So in the plans, it won't happen on day one, but it is in the plans.
We're building towards it.
We're building towards it. So you heard it here first. We've got so many cool things in the works that we talked about promotion-wise. The experience.
Yep.
The first company that I know of, unless I'm taking credit for somebody else's idea that I didn't know of, but at least in this area,
Yeah, locally.
we have the experience where a fan, just like any of you guys or anyone that wants to, I mentioned Atlanta Rick earlier, there is a spot in the tickets option there, excuse me guys, that you can pick for $50 that you can actually send me your ring music. You can reserve your chance to walk out just like a superstar and have your own entrance without having to take the first bump.
Yeah.
So if that's all you want that experience, you want to see how it feels, you want to hear the crowd roar.
Or if you want to gift a huge wrestling fan,
Yeah.
that'd be a great birthday gift or
Yes,
late
absolutely.
Valentine's gift for the husbands or boyfriends that messed up. Or
Right. And have that entrance. And we will post it to YouTube. It will be available to you to share to your friends.
Yeah.
So, again, an awesome way to be invested and become a part of the brand. I actually started last night and posted Your Turn, which is a
Yeah.
new an optional program too. So everyone, when I was posting up the superstar cards for our roster, they were like, "I want my own superstar card."
Yeah.
Well, now, call me crazy because because right now I'm the one having to do all of this.
Won't be the first time.
Is for $25, which I think is a reasonable fee for the time. We actually will. I will, if you send me the picture, I will. It's got to be a good picture and an appropriate picture, please. That I can edit. I'll put on your super fan card. Basically, you'll be posted to our wall of super fans. I mean, what a cool way to show support for your friend. And not only that, everybody's like, well, the $25. $25 is supporting the program and the wrestlers that you want.
Oh yeah.
It ain't going to make me rich, but it's going to allow me to book even bigger and better names every time.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do with that money is
We book names. We book venues.
we book names and we book venues.
We get the new equipment.
Yeah, new equipment. Those of you who know me, my wife is not even here right now, but Dalton can attest to this. I have expensive taste. I don't, from the camera that you're watching through, the mics that are on here, I buy quality. When it comes to my wrestlers, I buy quality. That's what I want. I could go out here and just get any Joe Blow off the street and put him in overalls
Right.
and call him a wrestler. But that doesn't mean he's a wrestler and that can
No.
achieve the level of quality in the ring that we are currently looking for.
Right.
So when everyone looks at the end of the day and says, well, there's so many options here, there's money going in. It's your opportunity to support and become a part of the brand.
I was gonna say, well, that just goes back to the brand. The 12 gauge. You came up with that. That was your personal persona part of it, right? Mm-hmm. You built that, and it's naturally grown into this. And so over the years, we have this jumping point now, to where, it's your baby, but it's grown so much bigger than that outside of that. And now we're trying to get, we're building this brand. We want the fans involved, and not only that, but we're giving them the avenues to build it. I keep going back, just bigger and better, but make it what we all want.
Yeah.
And what we've all been missing.
Correct. Yeah, because it's a huge undertaking. Because right now, and I'm still learning because I'm stubborn, and it has been my baby for so long, learning to ask for help and let someone else do some of the tasks.
Yep.
Because eventually, this is going to grow out of my hands. It's already Tania's already threatened to kill me multiple times because I'll sit down, then I'll run over to the computer, and I'll start on a whole new project because it hit me that I have this new idea and I want to implement it. Instead of writing it down, maybe doing it later, but it has to be done for me right away. And so I continuously work, and I have ADHD, so hyperfixation is a real thing.
Oh yeah.
So if I get something in my head that needs to be done, I won't go to bed until it's done. And so if it's...
You definitely sink your teeth into whatever it is.
Yeah. And so that's definitely a thing that I struggle with and have to learn to... I'm going to have to learn to delegate some of those things. And that's why I'm bringing in some of these things. We're going to talk about it on camera, actually. So Dalton's been very busy, and some of you have saw his post that... with family and kids, that wrestling is a little bit too overwhelming right now, time-wise, consumption. But there's a lot of things going on within this business that I'm bringing into play. Talked about some of the things about people making bad decisions and things like that.
Yeah.
That I'm going to have Dalton look at some of these guys. If you're booking with me, your social media is free game. Mm-hmm. Please don't post stupid stuff or things that we're going to feel, because this guy's going to tell me, some of these things that are
or cause unnecessary drama.
Yeah, are causing unnecessary drama.
Um,
So we're going to have him look into those things, but he's also going to be my guy that will occasionally pop up, and we're going to have him do some interviews with some guys and some sit downs. Some of these just short, giving the guys opinions and promos. So he is going to be my Tony Schiavone.
that's a good way to put it.
Is a good way to put
Yeah.
it. So until the time comes back, in the meantime, we're going to put a lot of protein on this guy, and when he does and is ready to return to the ring, we're going to make sure that he has somebody waiting on him.
Yep.
So-
So, we did this whole thing to sort of talk about Dalton versus Dallas, this and that. So, yeah, Dallas is out the ring, but we're definitely still going to be involved, especially if fans have any ideas again, taking that into consideration. Unfortunately, I won't be there for the first show due to family obligations and whatnot. But we definitely have some surprises in store, and we constantly kick ideas around. We say never in this business, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm still going to be heavily involved, on the scene, behind the scene, wherever it may be. Right now, I'm looking forward to doing the Barbarian Challenge, which I did last year, which is a 10K obstacle course in Gadsden, Alabama. Last year, I did it with Corey James and Tyler Smith, who will be returning, and I got a couple other friends as well. So that's sort of what I'm gearing towards personally on my side now, and doing that with Dallas again, getting back into working out and getting on protein, that sort of thing.
And if this Barbarian Challenge, guys, is
not
crazy. It's insane. So if you talk about a true athlete, maybe a sadistic athlete, this would probably fall in that category. That's probably why I can't put any weight on. Because the amount of calories just to go through this torturous event,
Yeah.
is nuts.
Yeah, Ryan Marks did it with us last year, and he said, "F that, I'm not getting my cardio back in that shape again." It's definitely not fun, but it is definitely fulfilling, and sets a goal that we can work towards and get through it.
So you heard it here first. Ryan Marks is a sissy from Dalton.
I said it to his face.
Yeah, no, good fun. Wow, I guess.
So yeah. To wrap this all up, just keep an eye out. You never know what may pop up where, what surprises we have, or what we may just be like, we'll say it right here on camera live.
Yes. And when the camera's pointed at me live, there's no telling what's going to be said. So, guys, it's been a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you didn't and you hated it, still share it. Otherwise, till next time, beware the 12 gauge.